Today's video is sponsored by Surfshark. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is one of the most fun FF games ever made. Its combat, its exploration, its minigames. This is a game that truly has it all, and a lot of it. But there's one thing in particular this game gets exactly right, that I've wanted to see a return to in this series for so long, and that I thought was gone for good. Of course, I'm talking about the Final Fantasy world map. This was once an iconic feature in Final Fantasy, one that would be present for the first 9 mainline games. The world map offered a true sense of exploration, oftentimes starting you out in a small corner of the world. Then, as you'd get different vehicles, you would be able to access more and more of the world, eventually culminating in unlimited access in the form of the airship. What made the world map so compelling was that it was also a progression system in itself, and the more access that you had to it, the more the player was able to feel their own progress throughout the game. While there's few things that all Final Fantasy games have in common, one of the few things that can be said is that they are all a globe-trotting, world-spanning adventure, one that truly makes you feel like you traveled across an entire world, got to know its citizens, see the various cultures and ways of life in that world, and ultimately save it. Since Final Fantasy X, the world map has gone away, and there's been various attempts to replace it with other things. Final Fantasy X's pilgrimage, Final Fantasy XII's more open zone structure, Final Fantasy XV's open world. Some of these being better than others, but none of them quite filling the void left by the world map. Notable Final Fantasy director, creative, producer, character designer Tetsuya Nomura has also expressed similar grievances in terms of world maps, with him saying, quote, "Ever since the world map disappeared, I really had this weird feeling. I always thought it was strange without a world map. I thought you can't really have an RPG without a world map, specifically for Final Fantasy VII. So to fully experience this world, we must have a world map. We can't be without it." This also isn't Nomura's first attempt at modernizing the world map. He also wanted Final Fantasy Versus 13 to have one as well, with him saying, "There have been many questions related to the field. It's not completely open world. It has the feeling of a 2D FF in HD. So indeed, before Final Fantasy 15 became the open world game that it is, originally it was simply going to have a world map as we think of them now. This is where I believe Final Fantasy must go with Final Fantasy 17 and beyond. This is what I passionately believe is the future of the series and is so pivotal for going forward." But first, a word from today's sponsor, Surfshark VPN. In today's world where everything's connected, there is nothing more important than keeping your life online safe, and doing this with Surfshark VPN is an absolute game changer. This service ensures that all the data transmitted from your device is encrypted, providing a secure barrier against potential cyber threats, or alter your virtual location, granting you access to a plethora of international content from streaming services to websites that might otherwise be restricted in your region. With Surfshark, you gain the power to control your digital footprint, ensuring your personal information remains confidential and your online activities untracked. If you value your privacy and freedom on the internet, control, and security, then it's an easy choice to make. So be sure to check out Surfshark and enter the coupon code NIGHTSKY for an extra 3 months free. Scan the QR code here or visit surfshark.deals/nightsky with the link in the description below. One of the reasons that the world map has gone away is that now, with these very realistic graphics and fully proportioned character models, having a giant guy run around the small field no longer feels as natural. It'd be more commonplace to see everything presented in a one-to-one style, where everything in the world is rendered at scale. However, the world map is an abstraction that is supposed to depict an entire world, and so doing that in a one-to-one scale is incredibly expensive and time-consuming, and thus far hasn't been done too well. That is, until Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, with multiple seamlessly connected regions, each one with their own unique biomes that make you feel like you're actually traveling across a world, seeing different locations, all of which greatly vary from one another. It's easy to look look at Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and just see another game that's open world. However, when you look deeper at what Final Fantasy VII Rebirth does, I think it's a lot more unique than the Ubisoft formula that so many people criticize it for. One of the things that really characterized the world map for me was that you couldn't just fast travel across the entire world. You had to have the appropriate vehicles in order to get across certain obstacles. The buggy, for example, allows you to travel over terrain that you normally couldn't go to. The various different chocobos allow you to explore the land in different ways. Some chocobos climb, some chocobos fly. Sid Highwind's tiny Bronco allows you to fly all over the world without having to get a chocobo carriage in order to do so, as well as be able to cross continents and even explore parts of the ocean. Being able to not only explore the world, but explore it through various different vehicles, different chocobos, and the world being both its own puzzle and progression system, where the player gets this sense that they've really traveled across this world, and by the end of their journey feels like they've seen everything this world has to offer, and also for hours at a time will keep you from returning to the open world at all, and will instead focus on linear dungeons and sections. And it's this exact paradigm of freedom with linear restriction that the older Final Fantasy games used to do so well. There were points in the story where you were able to explore the world more, go back and do and see things that you missed, all before the next section that would be highly story driven with a high sense of urgency. One of the things that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth does that is sort of brand new to the series is that as you do these sections that make you play as one character or the other, is that each character will have a unique ability that allows you to explore the world differently, such as Red 13, who can run alongside walls inside of his dungeon. Now unfortunately in Rebirth, these are typically limited to just the chapter where you play as that character. However, think about how incredible this could be if swapping between the characters throughout the entire world allowed you to explore different secrets. This is something that I would love to see Final Fantasy XVII or the next big FF title do. If you see something earlier in the game and you don't have that party member yet, you can remember that and then come back to that location when you do have that party member, allowing you to open up secret areas and find hidden discoveries within places that you've already been. This is the next big evolution for this style of gameplay to me. Of course, Rebirth also succeeds in having various mini-games and things to explore and do when you get to the locations. That's not to say that there isn't some fair criticism there. You may find that the exploration is a bit too icon-driven. Go to these points of interest on the map and fulfill the checklist. Of course, this isn't to say that I think that Rebirth is exactly perfect the way it is, and that the next game or even Final Fantasy XVII, if it were to use this style, couldn't drastically improve on what's already there. However, it is to say that this game gets way closer than pretty much anything in recent years. Final Fantasy XVI also tried its attempt at a sort of world map solution. I really applaud the spirit that they had in approaching this. I love how the sort of look of it feels almost inspired by the PS1 maps. They wanted you to really feel like these locations had a large amount of distance between them. So instead of making it a seamlessly connected map, they decided to use a more zone abstraction where you would pick these locations off of the map and then go explore them. They didn't connect them so that it could be inferred that there was several miles between them. The only issue I had with this attempt was that it ended up making the world feel pretty disjointed. Ironically, it ended up making the world feel much smaller than it was. Some of these locations ended up being very large. However, there just wasn't much to do or explore within them. I do think that there is value in this style, and so I want to be clear that I don't think that Final Fantasy XVII or whatever comes next necessarily has to copy Final Fantasy VII Rebirth style. In fact, I don't even think that should be the goal. What I do think should be the goal is the feelings of the world map should be replicated, and that is something that I think Final Fantasy VII Rebirth does the best out of any of the contemporary Final Fantasy games. That being said, there is a lot they could play with. Maybe not having every single quest or everything that you can find be an icon on the map. Let there be some true exploration, things that you could just miss. This will give players a truly great sense of discovery, and it's something that Elden Ring, for example, proved that many players still do want. Now, I'm not saying they should take it nearly as far as Elden Ring did, but these are ways they can encourage exploration without having to use the Ubisoft towers that so many people hate. That and having quests organically lead to others. Imagine spotting one quest while on the way to do another quest that isn't exactly marked on your map. This would allow players to feel like they're organically finding these quests, while also having the game gently guide them in in the direction. Imagine how incredible it would be if instead of summons being in the VR, you organically found summons out in the world, getting the sense of making a discovery and finding an incredibly cool super boss at the same time. This is the type of thing that would make exploration that much more exciting. But ultimately, I believe that striking in the direction of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is the appropriate thing for the next big Final Fantasy game to do. Not settle for anything less than giving players the feeling of exploring a world map in a brand new Final Fantasy again for the first time. And after experiencing this game, I can firmly say that there really is no replacement for that. But I'd love to know your thoughts on this, so let me know if you agree in the comments below and what style of game you think Final Fantasy VII and the next big major FF title after Re-Trilogy should be. Thanks to Surfshark for sponsoring this video, and don't forget to check the link in the description to get an amazing discount.